I pointed out before that Jackson Carlo has said some questionable things that kind of play into the SNP's hands in relation to the argument regarding IndyRef, quote unquote, too. And this again is another example of this. Sturgeon and the SNP are desperate to see Brexit fail in order to launch independence agenda. Thin Lips and the SNP want Brexit to fail so they can gain support for another referendum on independence, according to Jackson Carlo. The leader of the Conservative Party told the Express that the government needed to find solutions so that the whole of the UK can succeed outside of the EU. Mr Carlo also outlined his strong opposition to another referendum on independence and ruled out supporting one. He said, "We need to find solutions so that the whole of the UK together makes a success out of the EU. All the SNP are interested in doing is seeing Brexit fail in order to try and use that as a step up support for another independence referendum. And I'm determined we will not support and there be. But this is the SNP's agenda, and that is what's so potentially damaging to us outside the European Union." One of the main issues regarding the SNP's so-called wishes of an independence referendum was the fact that they needed Brexit to actually occur. So there was a contradiction that followed them wherever they went in relation to why they were trying so damn hard to stop Brexit for all this time. And they wasted so much time in doing so that they've left no time at all for them to have been able to act upon the mandate that they obtained in 2016. And now they're trying to get one through ulterior means, supposedly. If the SNP wanted an independence referendum, had to have done was vote for Theresa May's shitty deal. If they were so convinced by the rhetoric they were espousing at the time in relation to a surge in support, they should have been confident in allowing Theresa May's shit deal to go through, holding the referendum if they were able to obtain one. But legally speaking, they should have been able to had that occurred. But instead of that, they decided to put independence in the back burner and stop Brexit. And for what? For us now to believe that the reason that they tried to stop Brexit for all this time is because they were hell-bent on an independence referendum. SNP spending 3 years trying to stop the referendum result of 2016 should show you all you need to know in relation to what they really want. It was never independence, it was stopping Brexit. So for Jackson Carlo to come out and say that the SNP have been trying to stop Brexit so they can then obtain an independence referendum begs belief. So the Rainbow Unicorn Party have urged the UK government to hit pause on Brexit due to the coronavirus. The MP has urged the UK government to pause on Brexit negotiations. Philippa Whitford said it would be irresponsible to continue hurtling towards the transition deadline. The UK government said its priority was to slow the spread of the coronavirus, but it remained fully committed to the Brexit negotiations. Post-Brexit talks with the EU will continue this week despite the UK and much of the continent being on a coronavirus enforced lockdown. Michael Gove will co-chair discussions via video conference as the two sides look at implementing what's in the withdrawal agreement. So they can get together for little video conferences to negotiate Brexit terms. The climate gurus can't do the same when it comes to talking about action for the future. Anyway, Dr. Whitford called on the government to immediately seek an extension to the transition period. You'd like that, wouldn't you? She said the COVID-19 outbreak has gripped us all, regardless of politics or borders, and it is vital that the government here in the UK and abroad work collaboratively to combat the pandemic. Should have closed the borders, shouldn't you? Is it possible for businesses and others to prepare for life outside the EU while coping with the impact of the COVID-19 crisis at the same time? It's not a crisis, should have closed the borders. And many might struggle to survive the second blow of a hard Brexit at the end of this year. You mean Brexit? Hard Brexit. It is now vital that the government hits pause on all Brexit negotiations and immediately seeks an extension. And if they don't, is that going to add to the catalyst of we're being ignored claims? It's about fucking time. I'll believe it when I see it though. When asked about a possible extension, the Prime Minister's official spokesman told reporters, in terms of the timetable, there's no change from our point of view. Dr. Whitford urged the government to mirror the example of the Scottish Government, which has postponed planning for an independence referendum in 2020 due to the pandemic. Oh my god. It begs belief that they get away with this stuff time and time again, and nobody ever calls them out. I mean, it was only January where Nicola Sturgeon was talking about patience, and she was met with accusations of betrayal as it was announced that they were postponing their supposed independence referendum 2 months later, they're blaming the coronavirus, and Dr. Whitford is going so far as to suggest that the Scottish Government took initiative. They postponed the promises that they made to win the election. No, they did that 2 months prior. At the end of the day, they spent a month and a half talking about the right for people of Scotland to choose their own future. Then they win the election, and what happens? The same thing that Nicola Sturgeon did in 2017. Shelved independence to a later date. This time round, they can use the coronavirus as their fucking excuse. You didn't postpone planning because of the coronavirus. You're lying. The SNP made the difficult decision, but responsible decision, to pause work on preparing for an independence referendum. Independence, Thin Lips calls for patience over Indie Rev 2. In her speech in Edinburgh, she stressed that she still wants an independence referendum, and she asked, great, but you couldn't get one, could you? But she acknowledged that it might not happen until after next year's Parliament election. So, all of last year, or the latter half of last year, she was banging on about how the referendum had to occur this year, couldn't happen in 2021, it had to be 2020. 2020 rolls round, and now she's saying, it could be 2021 after all. So 2021 will come round, and the same thing's going to occur again. You're not going to get your referendum, but you're going to vote for her, on that basis anyway. And the media seem to do everything in their power to shine her halo for her. Miss Sturgeon was addressing SNP activists just hours before the UK leaves the EU, despite Scottish voters backing Remain by 62 to 38 in the EU referendum, in an EU referendum that was UK-wide. But second of all, no mention again of how that 62% came to be. Of course not. Not going to mention that, are we? The UK government must now mirror that step. Mirror that step. Fucking Jesus. So that we can focus on protecting our citizens. Anyway, we are working round the clock to do so, standing at our podiums and repeating what so-called experts say. So now, of course, the blame has firmly been laid at the feet of Boris Johnson and now the coronavirus for why there's been a lack of action on the false promises made in the 2019 election. They can now focus on the 2021 election. So, SNP are now on track to win a record 70 seats in the Holyrood elections, and poll boost for Thin Lips. Landslide victory. An election would pile pressure on Boris Johnson to allow Indie Rev 2. I mean, we all know that they're going to win the election anyway. There's no viable opposition. Every other party in this country is just a shitter version of the SNP. They're all lefties. The SNP are just the furthest. SNP are set to win a record number of seats in the next election according to the latest opinion poll. The panel-based study for the Sunday Times predicts Thin Lips is on course to lead her party to a landslide. Of course, because she's going to keep talking up independence, only for her to then conflate it with the EU membership after the fact yet again. Such a result would give the SNP a clear mandate to demand that the Tory leader allow another independence referendum and set up a potential constitutional crisis with the PM having vowed not to sanction Indie Rev 2. Every single time the SNP have won an election as of late, it seems to add to their mandates. They've got one mandate that's about to expire come 2021. Nobody else has fought bar their own for why they haven't had any time to act upon said mandate. You can't waste 3 years trying to stall or reverse a referendum result, then expect to be treated with courtesy after the fact. Constituency forecasts put the SNP in a thumping 51% with the Conservatives in second place, unchanged since the last poll in November. The figures are repeated at the election in May 2021. The SNP would get one more seat than they managed in their historic 2011 victory that saw the party form the first ever majority government at Holyrood. Looming threat of Brexit and Sturgeon's leadership during the coronavirus appears to have helped boost the SNP's numbers. With the party leader rated as having a net score of plus 54 for her handling of the pandemic, while Johnson was plus 17 and Trump negative 55. If you want the campaign to join the European Union, then be my guest. I don't give a shit. I just wish they would drop the act. Like this, for example. Do you support Scottish independence? That's a separate question to, do you wish to rejoin Europe? Because at the end of the day, that's exactly what the SNP want to do. They want to avoid Brexit and be part of the European Union. This question is not asking about that. This question is asking if we want independence. Any of these arseholes that repeat the Sturgeon quotes, such as, say to any member of the EU that they're not independent and watch as they laugh. Every time I get that one thrown at me, I don't know how I recover from those harrowing, bone-chilling remarks. They have no idea how much cringe surrounds them whenever they repeat Sturgeon quotes. They think they're being witty, but they're Sturgeon quotes. Because Sturgeon talks a good game about independence and the right to self-determination, but she doesn't have any say about sovereignty or lock off in the event of rejoining Europe.